The story begins at an ordinary elementary school. Inside a classroom, a teacher hands out questionnaires to the students. A student's hand hovers over a prompt asking to introduce his family. The young boy looks up, his expression serious and thoughtful. He hunches over his desk and begins to write. He writes about his father's drinking and the fear it brings him. His pencil stops just short of the paper as he hesitates. The boy looks down, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. The next question asks about the hardest thing in his life. He writes a single, heartbreaking word, family. A curious classmate peeks over his shoulder. The classmate questions if his family is really the cause of his troubles. The boy turns, surprised by the question. He looks away, a flicker of realization in his eyes. A memory from the second grade surfaces in his mind. He learned then that some truths are better left hidden from others. He wonders if telling the teacher might have brought help. Decisively, he discards the paper he was writing on. The crumpled paper lies in darkness, his true feelings hidden. He turns to his classmate, pretending he just made a mistake. Later, he stands before the class to present his revised answer. He lies, claiming he has a loving family that always supports him. A flashback shows him sitting utterly alone on a park bench. He watches another boy being comforted by his mother. A memory surfaces of his father's anger during a meal. He remembers being sick and alone in his bed. His father sits nearby, oblivious and absorbed in his computer. Back in class, he invents a story about a fun birthday trip to an amusement park. He recalls seeing a happy family, their child excited for a birthday outing. The reality was his father, passed out and blaming the boy's mother for leaving. His father's cruel words echo as the boy cleans up the mess. In front of his classmates, he forces a bright smile, claiming to be happy. The smile begins to waver as he holds the paper. He struggles to maintain the facade of happiness. His smile twists into a look of quiet pain. He stands alone, facing his peers. The world around him fades into blackness. He decides to shut off his feelings to withstand the pain. As he grows older, he resolves to simply bear it until he's an adult. He ages further, determined to succeed and forge his own path. With newfound resolve, he looks up from the darkness. Now a young man named Ian, he sits confidently for an interview. He passionately explains his dream of getting into this university. An interviewer notes his impressive academic improvement and awards. A chart clearly shows his grades climbing from the bottom to the top. The interviewer, however, looks at him with a hint of skepticism. He points out that Ian's average grades are still below their standard. Ian calmly explains that he started his studies later than everyone else. He frames his disadvantage as an opportunity for greater growth. He confidently assures them he can overcome any future obstacle. His voice rings with absolute confidence in his own potential. The results appear on a screen. He has passed the interview. Ian stares at the screen in disbelief. His eyes are wide with shock and relief. A single tear begins to form, breaking through his stoic exterior. Years of repressed emotions finally burst forth in a flood of tears. He weeps, feeling the weight of his hard work finally being rewarded. He runs from the building, believing a happy life is finally within reach. A genuine smile lights up his face as he looks toward the future. He walks home feeling hopeful and light. Arriving at his apartment, he's filled with plans for a better life. But a sudden, chilling realization stops him in his tracks. He opens his door to find his home in disarray and his father cornered. Two menacing figures are threatening his father over a debt. One of the loan sharks turns and notices Ian standing in the doorway. The men leave, warning his father to have the interest ready next time. They walk past a frozen Ian, their business concluded for now. One of them offers a piece of parting advice. Don't end up like your father. Ian stands motionless as the door closes, his hope shattered. The light in his eyes dims, replaced by a cold shadow. His expression hardens into one of grim determination. He understands that once again, everything has fallen apart. He looks down at his father, who sits defeated on the floor. A fire of resolve burns in his eyes. He looks at his father with a mix of pity and frustration. He tells his father to go out and find work. Ian sits alone, examining the loan documents. The debt is a staggering, insurmountable figure. He realizes his hard-earned tuition is a drop in the ocean compared to this. His dream of happiness now seems like a cliff made of money he can never climb. He hangs his head, the weight of despair pressing down on him. Yet, he vows to overcome this hardship just as he has overcome everything before. He pictures himself falling into an endless abyss of debt. His life becomes a cycle of endless work with no rest. Anxiety and worry eat away at his sleep, leaving him perpetually exhausted. Despite the grueling labor, his body strangely refuses to collapse. He feels as if his body has been cursed to endure this living hell. He toils endlessly, loading boxes in the freezing snow. A text message reminds him of a university meeting he must attend. He agrees to hang out with coworkers, his hand bandaged from his labor. He checks his bank book, the numbers ticking up agonizingly slowly. His gaze is fixed, his mind calculating. At the end of a long day, his coworkers bid him farewell. He knows his savings are not enough. He must push himself harder. He walks home, already planning his schedule of work and classes for the next day. He reflects on how quickly time seems to pass in this endless cycle. His life is a relentless loop of school and multiple jobs. He reaffirms to himself that he can handle it, just as he always has. He once again decides to shut down his emotions to survive. He tells himself this nightmare will surely be over soon. He finds himself walking through a dark, surreal landscape. He trudges forward alone, lost in the oppressive darkness. He questions how long he's been walking and where he is. The world is dim, and he wonders if it's just sleep deprivation. His eyes snap open with a jolt of confusion. He realizes with a start that something has returned. Suddenly, he's in a strange place, a man lying unconscious at his feet. He glances around, completely disoriented. The unconscious man is violently tossed aside. Ian's confusion deepens as he tries to make sense of his surroundings. He's now facing a crowd of rough-looking men gathered for a fight. A man with green hair approaches, asking if he's a newcomer. Ian stammers, denying it and desperately trying to figure out where he is. A hand scatters a flurry of cash into the air. The money rains down around a bewildered Ian. A blonde man offers him all the money on the ground if he wins the fight. Ian's eyes are wide with a mixture of shock and temptation. He looks down at his feet, surrounded by a carpet of cash. A dazed expression settles on his face. He tries to refuse, explaining he's lost and questioning the scene before him. The blonde man sweetens the deal, offering a stack of bills as a bonus. The crowd watches as the blonde man makes his offer. Ian's gaze is fixed on the wad of cash in the man's hand. The man insists that participation is the only way to get the money. The crisp bills represent a potential solution to his problems. Ian questions why the man would simply give away so much money. The man smirks, boasting about his wealth and pressing Ian for a decision. Ian hesitates, the offer hanging in the air. He remembers his boss callously cutting his meager salary. His boss had justified it by saying he was just a student. The memory of being told to be grateful for scraps fuels his decision. With a swift motion, Ian snatches the money from the blonde man's hand. The blonde man grins, his plan succeeding. The men mockingly comment on how quickly money changed Ian's mind. Ian stares at the cash, the weight of his choice in his palm. The rules are announced. 5 minutes, no fouls, anything goes. Ian crouches, contemplating what he can endure for 5 minutes. A fist comes flying toward his face. His eyes track the incoming blow with sharp focus. He instinctively ducks, narrowly avoiding the punch. He looks up, surprised by his own quick reaction. His opponent follows up with a powerful kick. Ian raises his arm, successfully blocking the attack. The green-haired fighter steps back, taken aback by Ian's defense. Ian winces, feeling the impact of the block on his arm. The blonde spectator laughs, reminding them that there are no rules. His companion expresses concern about a civilian getting seriously hurt. The blonde man dismisses it as just a game for fun. He points out that Ian is no different from them, as he's also there for money. The companion falls silent, unable to argue with the logic. The green-haired man charges forward again. Ian braces himself, blocking the attack. His opponent unleashes a relentless series of strikes. The fighter pauses, confused by Ian's passive defense. Ian simply stands there, absorbing the blows without fighting back. The fighter continues his assault on the unmoving target. He stops again, perplexed by Ian's refusal to retaliate. The crowd murmurs, wondering why the newcomer won't defend himself. The blonde man laughs, finding the situation amusing, and starts taking bets. The frustrated fighter grabs Ian, demanding to know why he won't fight. Ian's eyes remain empty, showing no emotion. 2 spectators make a bet on whether Ian can last. They exchange cash, gambling on his endurance. The fighter realizes Ian's strategy: endure the beating to win the money. He throws another punch, but Ian deflects it. Ian's hand shoots out, grabbing his opponent's wrist. He grips the fist tightly, stopping the attack. The fighter explains that he also needs money and has to knock Ian out. He lifts his leg, preparing for a powerful strike. The kick flies towards Ian's head. He connects with a brutal knee to Ian's face. He tells Ian to just go down so they can both get paid. Another heavy blow lands, sending Ian reeling. Ian's face is bruised and bloodied from the impact. A memory flashes of his father's rage-filled face from his childhood. As a boy, he learned to tell himself that he could endure anything. He convinced himself that if he blocked out the pain and fear, then he wouldn't feel anything at all. The scene shifts to a hospital. A doctor examines brain scans on a monitor. She confirms with the father that his son seems unable to feel pain. The father explains that Ian is mostly fine, but sometimes collapses unexpectedly. The doctor reveals that Ian's brain is different, with diminished sensory nerves. While the cause is unknown, she stresses the need for regular treatment. The father impatiently cuts her off, only concerned about the cost. The doctor looks at him, momentarily speechless. A loud crash echoes from the hospital's reception area. The father explodes in anger, refusing to accept the diagnosis. He drags his young son away, dismissing the doctor's professional opinion. The little boy walks silently down a long, dark corridor. He grows older, but his path remains the same. Even as a high school student, his expression is stoic and distant. His eyes are blank, reflecting a deep internal emptiness. He recalls his father's drunken tirades. He simply walks past, completely ignoring the abuse. He remembers his classmates seeing him as a cold, unfeeling robot. He finds himself outside a school counseling office. A counselor gently asks him to share his troubles. He gives vague, hollow answers, revealing nothing of his true struggles. Back in the fight, Ian's eyes flash with a new intensity as he prepares to counterattack. He takes a heavy blow to the stomach, his face contorting in pain. The blond man's companion grows concerned, thinking the fight is too one-sided and must be stopped. Ian doubles over, clutching his midsection as he struggles to recover. In a flashback, a counselor gently asks him if he can breathe. The high school-aged Ian looks down, quietly answering that he cannot. The counselor looks back, confused by his response. Ian explains that when his chest feels tight and breathing is difficult, he simply stops. Back in the present, Ian unleashes a powerful strike against his opponent. The blond man smirks, remarking that the fight might end sooner than he thought. The green-haired fighter commends Ian for his resilience as steam rises from his body. The counselor, still in the memory, asks Ian to clarify what he means. Ian calmly states that it is exactly as he said. He describes a state of not breathing, where his body feels hollow and sinks. The green-haired fighter watches in confusion as Ian begins to stand up again. Ian realizes that even without breathing, his body remains fine. He confirms this newfound understanding with a determined look. He recalls that even without sleep or rest, and even when losing his mind, his body simply will not collapse. He raises his fists, ready to continue the fight with renewed purpose. The green-haired fighter is stunned, wondering how Ian is still standing after a direct hit to the chin. The blond man impatiently tells his fighter to end it, reminding him that no winner means no money. The fighter grits his teeth, his expression hardening with resolve. He launches himself forward, landing another punch on Ian. He yells in frustration, telling Ian to just fall so they can both get their money. Ian remains standing, his eyes fixed on his opponent. He effortlessly dodges the next punch that comes his way. The green-haired fighter's eyes widen in disbelief at the sudden change. Ian informs his opponent that he has changed his mind. He declares his intention to take all the money on the ground. The green-haired fighter is shocked into silence by Ian's declaration. Ian clenches his jaw, his focus now entirely on winning. He unleashes a powerful hook that connects squarely with his opponent's face. He follows up with another brutal strike. The attack continues with a third devastating blow. Ian rains a flurry of punches down on his opponent. The green-haired fighter struggles to defend himself, questioning the sudden onslaught. The companion watches in disbelief, wondering if Ian was pretending not to know how to fight. The fighter is bewildered, noticing that Ian's attacks are getting faster. He is overwhelmed by the relentless barrage of strikes. The companion watches intently, noting Ian's non-stop assault with only a minute left. The green-haired fighter desperately tries to block, needing just one chance to counter. Ian suddenly stops his attack, his fist held back. The fighter's eyes light up, believing he has found his opening. He charges forward, throwing a punch with all his might. Ian ducks under the attack, his own fist blurring as it moves. He delivers a powerful uppercut that sends his opponent flying. Both fighters are sent reeling from the force of the final blow. The green-haired man crashes to the ground, knocked out cold. Ian lands on his feet, standing over his defeated opponent. The crowd stares in stunned silence at the unexpected outcome. The spectators who bet against Ian erupt in anger, throwing their money away. Ian stands alone in the center of the ring, bruised but victorious. He looks down at his bloodied knuckles, his expression unreadable. The ground is now littered with cash from the losing bets. One of the spectators who bet on Ian celebrates his win, demanding his payout. The blonde man looks on, annoyed and feeling like he's been tricked. His gaze is fixed on Ian, a thoughtful expression on his face. Ian kneels down and begins to pick up the scattered bills. The blonde man approaches him from behind. He asks the kneeling Ian for his name. Ian replies without looking up, his focus on gathering the money. The blonde man compliments Ian's fighting skills, admitting he was surprised by the win. Ian gives a non-committal response, still collecting his prize. The blonde man's eyes narrow slightly. He asks Ian how he found such a secluded area. Ian claims he got lost while walking without any particular destination. The blonde man finds his story hard to believe, thinking it makes no sense. The scene shows the isolated warehouse deep in the woods. The blonde man watches Ian, concluding that while he's strange, he doesn't seem to be lying. The defeated fighter gets to his feet furious. He declares the match invalid since Ian wasn't an official player. He seethes with anger, feeling that Ian was toying with him the whole time. He drags a heavy metal pipe from the ground, his rage boiling over. He stalks towards the unsuspecting Ian, ready to attack. He calls out to Ian, who turns around, surprised. The fighter swings the pipe with murderous intent. Ian's hand shoots up, catching the pipe just inches from his face. The companion slides in, intervening in the attack. He clenches his fist, preparing to step in. He delivers a powerful kick, disarming the enraged fighter. He throws the pipe aside, ending the confrontation. He sternly warns the fighter to stop his sudden outbursts. The blonde man complains about holding the match outdoors, but then brightens, noting they found a great new player. The companion looks on with a serious expression. Ian's eyes are cold and distant. The blonde man offers Ian a phone, inviting him to the next match. He explains that Ian will get a new phone with the next location after each fight. He clarifies that attendance is mandatory to continue participating. He waves goodbye, telling Ian he'll see him at the next match. Ian and the companion are left standing together. The companion asks Ian if he's a college student. He questions if this is really Ian's first time fighting, given his skill level. Ian nervously insists that he just stumbled upon the place by accident. The companion observes that Ian maintains his composure well, showing no fear. Ian explains that he's just used to not showing any reaction. The companion asks if Ian is a player, a fighter working for gamblers. He seems to accept Ian's denial, now certain he has no connection to their world. He gives Ian a grave warning. Don't show up to the next match if he wants to live. Ian looks back, confused by the sudden threat. The companion explains that everyone joins for money, but soon learns there's more to it. He warns that joining creates a connection that's not easily broken. He describes the place as being filled with dirty, wicked people. He points to the unconscious fighter as an example of the kind of people Ian will find there. He advises Ian, as a normal student, not to waste his time in such a place. Ian agrees, stating he would also prefer not to get involved. The companion pats the defeated fighter on the shoulder, and they walk away. The group departs, leaving Ian standing alone in the now empty lot. Ian stands alone in the darkness, the events of the night sinking in. He turns and walks away from the fighting ground. He continues his solitary walk through the night. He feels as though he's just woken up from a strange dream. He thinks about how he fought a complete stranger. He realizes he made more money in that moment than from a full day of hard labor. The lingering soreness in his body confirms the reality of what happened. But the dreamlike feeling quickly fades, as if nothing happened at all. He shuts down everything around him, just as he always does. He arrives at a brightly lit convenience store. A bell jingles as he enters the store. A female clerk at the counter greets him. Her eyes widen slightly as she recognizes him. Ian walks past the counter without a word. He grabs a large pack of bottled water. He places a few bills on the counter to pay. He turns and leaves the store carrying the water. The clerk watches him go, a look of concern on her face. She remains at the counter, lost in thought. Ian walks up to his run-down apartment building. He sets the heavy pack of water down outside his door. He announces his return to the empty-looking apartment. His father turns from the computer, his face contorted with anger. He furiously berates Ian for wandering around all day while their house is in shambles. Ian silently places his bank book and the wad of cash on the desk. His father looks down at the money, his anger momentarily forgotten. Ian reminds his father that he was asked to help as much as he could. His father takes the money and the bank book, calculating the total. He walks away with the money, heading to his room. Ian slumps to the floor in the corner of the room. For the first time in a while, the house is finally quiet. He sits in the silence, a bruised but calm expression on his face. He savors the quiet, peaceful moment. He closes his eyes, finding a brief respite. A notification buzzes on his phone, shattering the peace. His eyes snap open, the calm moment gone. The phone displays an event notice for his part-time job. The empty, cracked wall of his room seems to close in on him. He is back at the parcel service, his face devoid of emotion. He mechanically places boxes on a conveyor belt, trapped in the loop once more. The scene shifts to a bright, modern university campus. He stands outside a lecture hall. Inside, 2 female students hope the required class ends quickly after introductions. A male student wonders about a person who hasn't shown up to any events. Another student confirms there's a blank space on the registry, meaning no one knows this person. The first student's interest is piqued, and he asks if anyone knows the person's name. A female student at another table answers that his name is Ian. The group turns to her, surprised. She confirms that the missing student is a guy. The students realize she must have gone to the same school as Ian and assume they are close. The girl, Seun, quickly clarifies that they are not really close. Her friend suggests that Seun should invite Ian to their gathering. Seun expresses her doubt, saying she doesn't think he will come. Her friends look at her, confused by her certainty. She explains that he only does what he has planned. She adds that he seems to have no interest in anything. Elsewhere, Ian's phone rings in the university hallway. He answers a call from his boss at the employment agency. His boss informs him that work is canceled for the day. The boss explains his car broke down and he can't bring the equipment. Ian hangs up and walks down the empty hallway. The boss wishes him luck with his college classes before ending the call. He hangs up the phone with a heavy sigh. In his office, a colleague angrily confronts him about their team leader running off with their money. He demands to know why the boss is still paying Ian when the rest of them haven't been paid. The boss explains that he only gave Ian a reduced wage. He sighs, saying he can't bring himself to scam a young man just starting out. He tells his angry colleague to shut up and find them a new deal. Back in the classroom, Ian looks at a notification on his phone. He realizes he now has some unexpected free time. The lecture ends and the professor dismisses the class. Ian packs his bag, deciding to just head home. The group of girls spot him and one urges Seun to go invite him. Seun tries to leave, saying he won't go and that she has a shift. Her friend pleads with her, explaining she already told the upperclassmen he was coming. Her friend grabs her backpack, trying to stop her from leaving. Another friend tries to comfort the disappointed one, saying they can have fun on their own. The male student from before decides he'll go ask Ian himself. He walks over to where Ian is sitting. He cheerfully introduces himself as Gunsu Park. He invites Ian to their get-together, suggesting it's a good chance to meet everyone. Ian politely tells him that he doesn't want to go. Gunsu presses him, asking if he has other plans or work. Ian admits he has time, but no motivation to get closer to others. He thinks to himself that above all else he has no money. He opens his wallet, revealing it's completely empty. Gunsu peeks over, seeing the empty wallet. He tells Ian not to worry about money and offers him a discount. He whispers that he's close with the student council president and urges Ian to come. Ian remains silent, his expression unchanged. At the convenience store, Seun's phone buzzes with a new message. It's a photo from her friend, showing Ian at the gathering with the group. Seun stares at the photo in disbelief, wondering what could have possibly made him go. Gunsu tries to calm a female student, explaining Ian is just leaving early. Gunsu leaves to mingle, complimenting Ian on his appetite before he goes. Ian is left sitting with a blonde upperclassman who watches him in silence. The upperclassman's expression is intense and questioning. He asks Ian why he came to a drinking party if he wasn't going to drink. He pours a drink for Ian, pressuring him to join in. Other students at a nearby table watch the uncomfortable scene unfold. Ian quietly states that he simply doesn't like to drink. The upperclassman smirks, taking this to mean that Ian is capable of drinking. Ian's eyes widen slightly at the persistent pressure. He holds the small glass, a strange curiosity in his eyes. A memory of his father's drunken rage flashes in his mind. He recalls his father not even recognizing him, asking who he was after a fight. He wonders if drinking this will help him understand his father's actions. With a gulp, he downs the drink in one go. He looks down, his expression turning sour. He thinks that the disgusting smell of alcohol now reeks from him, just like his father. The upperclassman grins and immediately pours him another glass. Ian stares at the glass, wanting to know what his father felt during his violent episodes. The upperclassman encourages him to drink more since he started late. The students at the next table hear the upperclassman loudly demanding more drinks. Gunsu looks over, a question mark appearing over his head. The blonde man, now clearly drunk, wonders why Ian still seems completely sober. Ian realizes the alcohol is only bringing back painful memories. He decides he's had enough and stands up to leave. The drunk upperclassman suddenly grabs his sleeve. He aggressively pulls Ian back, demanding to know why he's being ignored. Ian's eye narrows, a dangerous glint appearing. The image of his father's monstrous, enraged face fills his mind. Ian's expression turns cold and hard. His eyes become blank, the pupils disappearing. His face is cast in shadow, his humanity seeming to drain away. In a sudden move, Ian grabs the upperclassman by the shirt and lifts him. He slams the man down onto the table with immense force. The entire restaurant looks on in stunned silence. Pinned to the table, the upperclassman looks up in terror. He struggles and yells, completely overpowered. Ian begins to strike the man repeatedly. He coldly asks if hitting people after drinking makes him feel better. The upperclassman looks back, dazed and confused. Ian delivers another powerful blow. He looms over the defeated man as Gunsu rushes towards them. A memory of his father screaming at him to get up echoes in his mind. Ian jolts awake, breathing heavily in an unfamiliar room. He looks around, confused, and sees Gunsu sitting at a desk. He asks where he is and who the person in front of him is. Gunsu explains that he's Gunsu Park and that he brought a drunk Ian to his place to rest. Ian lowers his head, trying to process the information. The memory of the violent outburst flashes in his mind. He looks up, still disoriented. Gunsu helps a wobbly Ian to his feet. He nervously laughs, saying he'll take his friend home now. Back in the present, Gunsu hands a cup of water to a now sober Ian. He tells Ian not to worry, as the upperclassman started the fight. Gunsu sits at his computer, calling the upperclassman trash. Ian sits on the bed, silently holding the mug. He looks up, still slightly dazed. He sees his reflection in a mirror across the room. The reflection briefly morphs into the image of his father holding a bottle. His own face stares back, half covered in shadow. Ian suddenly clutches his mouth, feeling sick. Gunsu quickly points him towards the bathroom. Gunsu waits outside, apologizing for not intervening sooner. Ian thanks him from the bathroom and asks for the time. Gunsu points to the clock, showing it's 1 a.m., and tells him to get more rest. Ian emerges, putting on his jacket and saying he's late for work. He tells a stunned Gunsu that he works at the parcel service. Gunsu is shocked that he's going to work with no sleep and after drinking so much. Ian says he's completely fine, not even hungover, as Gunsu looks on in amazement. Ian glances around Gunsu's neat, modern apartment. Gunsu confirms that he lives alone. As Ian ties his shoes, he remarks that it must be nice to live alone. Gunsu laughs, complaining about chores and how inconvenient it is. Ian stays silent, the comment highlighting their different lives. He thinks about the cost of living away from family. Gunsu cheerfully admits his parents pay for everything and that he's broke. Ian looks up, the gap between their realities becoming painfully clear. He thanks Gunsu for everything and leaves. The door closes, leaving Gunsu alone in his apartment. Gunsu stands thoughtfully, a small smile on his face. The next day, the scene shifts to the university's general chemistry lab. Seun's friend asks her if she heard about the fight. The friend recounts the story, mentioning the weird upperclassman and how Gunsu helped. Another friend expresses her relief that Shun wasn't there to see the intense atmosphere. Seon listens quietly, her expression filled with concern. The students wonder which upperclassman will be their teaching assistant for the lab. One of the girls thinks it will be one of their seniors. A montage shows the blonde upperclassman from the party, now with a bandage, preparing to take attendance. The girls gasp in shock, recognizing him immediately. They realize that since it's a required class, Ian will be there too. The lab door creaks open and Ian walks in. Ian and the blonde TA lock eyes in a silent, tense standoff. The air in the lab grows heavy as the other students watch nervously. One of the girls whispers, asking if they're going to fight again. Ian ignores the TA and calmly begins to explain the day's experiment. The TA glares at him from the front of the room, his arms crossed. Ian methodically puts on his safety goggles and gloves. The two work near each other, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The TA glares over Ian's shoulder as he works on the experiment. He continues to stare at Ian from across the room as Ian writes his report. A clock shows time passing quickly. The lab is now empty except for the blonde TA. He glances at a stack of lab reports left on his desk. He picks up Ian's report and stares at his name, a vengeful look on his face. In the hallway, the girls talk about how the TA stared at Ian the entire time. Seon turns to her friends and suggests they go grab a meal. Ian walks alone down the empty university corridor. Seon tells her friend she's going to eat with someone else today. Ian gets his lunch from the cafeteria line. He sits down at an empty table to eat by himself. He looks up as Seon places her tray on his table. She sits down across from him and says a simple hi. Ian looks at her for a moment before turning his head away. He turns back to his food, ignoring her. Seon looks at him, confused by his reaction. She asks him why he's turning away from her. She lists all the ways they know each other, from living in the same building to attending the same schools. She even reminds him they were seatmates in the same class last year. Ian looks up, a flicker of surprise on his face as if he's just realizing it. Seon is exasperated, wondering why he's acting like this is all new information. She thinks to herself that he's been this way since he was young. She remembers him standing alone at their middle school graduation. She recalls him always seeming preoccupied, looking at something far away. His focus was always elsewhere, lost in his own world. He seemed to shut his mind off from everything, even telling her it was their first time meeting. She saw him as a complete outsider, isolated from everyone else. She felt there was an impenetrable wall between them. But she wonders why, despite the wall, he was always so close by. And why, despite his distance, he always seemed to catch her attention. She had thought, or at least hoped, that they were friends. Her eyes narrow in frustration, thinking he can't possibly not remember anything. She concludes that her excitement about their connection was just wishful thinking. She looks away, defeated. She accepts that this person has no memory of her at all. She picks up her tray, saying she'll just go. Ian suddenly speaks, calling her by her full name, Seon Lim, and identifying her as his friend. He explains that he just doesn't show much of a reaction. He says he thinks about things in his head instead of showing it on his face. He looks at her and states clearly that he remembers everything. Seon stands frozen, staring at him in disbelief. A small, gentle smile finally breaks through on her face. She sits back down and they agree to have a good meal. She asks him why he kept acting like he didn't know her if he remembered. Elsewhere, students are picking up their graded lab reports from a basket. A sign on the wall indicates the reports are for the general chemistry lab. A female student is shocked that Gunsu received an A+. The same student, Hana, leans over and asks Ian what grade he got. A close-up shows a large red C written on Ian's report. The students around him look on in stunned confusion. Seon snatches the report out of his hands. She walks purposefully out of the classroom with his report. She confidently states that she believes there is something wrong with the grading. A different TA looks over the report, agreeing that it seems perfect. The blonde TA, who is also present, reluctantly apologizes and agrees to change the grade. Seon watches him correct the grade, her expression firm. Her eye narrows as she observes the scene. The blonde TA is visibly annoyed as he changes the grade under her watchful eye. Outside, the group of friends discusses the incident, calling it a pathetic form of revenge. Hana earnestly tells Ian to let them know if anything like that happens again, promising to help. Ian gives a simple, quiet, thanks. Flustered but determined, Hana asks him to have a meal with her. The rest of the group looks on, surprised by her sudden boldness. Gunsu bluntly asks Hana if she has a crush on Ian. A flustered Hana pinches Gunsu's side in retaliation. Another friend encourages the two of them to hang out. Ian flatly replies that he has a part-time job he needs to work. Hana's hopeful expression falls. She asks about tomorrow, but Ian's answer is still work. She tries the day after, but the answer remains the same. She suggests the weekend, but Ian again says he has to work. Desperately, she asks about the break, only to get the same reply. Hana looks down, running out of options. With a final burst of courage, she yells that they should have lunch at school tomorrow. A moment of silence hangs between them. To everyone's shock, Ian quietly agrees. Seon watches them from the side, a thoughtful expression on her face. The group walks to the bus stop, waving goodbye as Ian and Seon head in the same direction. On the bus, Seon tells Ian that it seems Hana is interested in him. Ian looks confused, saying he hasn't done anything for her. Seon suggests that maybe Hana just likes the way he looks. Ian asks her what he looks like, genuinely curious. Seon smiles, teasingly telling him to look in a mirror. Ian falls silent, looking out the window. Distorted, ghostly images of his own face flash in his mind. He tells Seon that sometimes he sees something different in his reflection. Seon looks at him, confused by his strange comment. Seon changes the subject back to Hana, asking if he thinks she's pretty. Ian deflects, asking if the way she looks is pretty. Seon's expression becomes slightly annoyed. She asks if he's being difficult, because he doesn't want to give an honest answer. They sit in a tense silence for a moment. Seon sighs, concluding that he's just not interested. Ian admits that he's never really thought about it before. He stands up, saying he needs to get off for his part-time job. Seon watches him walk away from the bus stop. She thinks to herself that even as a college student, he hasn't changed much. Ian is back at a construction site, cutting pipes with a power tool. His father, also working there, watches him from a distance. His father notes that Ian seems to be enjoying college, seeing him smile for the first time. Later that night, Ian walks home, thinking about his busy but good day. Ian walks with heavy steps towards his rundown apartment building. He trudges up the dark, familiar staircase. He opens the door, announcing his return to the dark apartment. His eyes widen as he takes in the scene before him. The loan sharks are back, the blonde one smirking as his partner holds Ian's father down. Ian stares back, his face an unreadable mask. His father is on the floor, bruised and bleeding. Ian asks why they're here, stating that he already gave them the money. The blonde man feigns confusion, questioning what money he's talking about. He turns to his partner, pretending they have no memory of receiving any payment. Ian looks up, coldly stating the exact amount he paid. The loan sharks look at each other, a question mark hanging over their heads. The blonde man holds up Ian's father's bank book, showing it has been completely emptied. He asks the defeated man if he wasted all the money on gambling again. His father looks down, unable to answer. The loan shark grabs his father's face, mocking his foolish attempt to repay a debt by gambling. He raises a fist to strike as Ian watches helplessly from the doorway. Ian realizes this is the same scene, always repeating itself. Every glimmer of hope is always followed by this crushing despair. He understands he must always be prepared for the worst. His silhouette stands in the darkness, wondering if this nightmare will ever end. He remembers how he always endured and forced himself to keep going. He imagines himself climbing an endless, dark cliff face. His eyes burn with a desperate resolve. But as he looks up, he sees nothing but an empty black void. In the darkness, the burner phone begins to ring. A notification appears on the screen, detailing the location of the next fight. Ian's expression hardens, his eyes glowing with a cold light. He remembers the money, the bets, and the brutal path to earning it. He arrives at a new location, where the blonde man and his companion wait. Inside, a vicious fight is already underway, with a red-haired man dominating his opponent. Ian stands in the doorway, announcing his arrival. The crowd cheers as another fighter enters the ring. The blonde man wonders aloud why Ian is so late. His companion scoffs, saying he knew the punk wouldn't come. The blonde man playfully insists that Ian could show up at any second. Just then, the door opens, revealing a muscular, red-haired figure. The man with a scarred smile announces that he's found them. The crowd, including the blonde man and his companion, turns in stunned silence. The companion angrily asks the newcomer why he is here. The red-haired man grins, stating that this is a place for fighting. The companion reminds him that he was banned after killing someone in a previous match. The man dismisses the past, claiming to have reflected on his actions. The companion tries to push him away, telling him to leave. The man shakes off the hand, defiantly holding a briefcase. He sneers, saying the fights have become child's play since he left. The green-haired fighter from the last match looks on, confused. The red-haired man announces that he's brought a present. He unlatches the briefcase with a click. He throws a massive pile of cash into the air, telling them to let the fighting begin. The crowd stares in awe as the money rains down on them. The spectators scramble for the cash, eagerly demanding a fight. The companion looks on, his expression grim. The red-haired man challenges the entire crowd, daring anyone to face him. The green-haired fighter clenches his fists and steps forward. The companion stops him, explaining that this man isn't here for a match, but just to hurt people. He reveals that the man finds delight only in the agony of his opponents, calling him a psycho. The green-haired fighter listens, his resolve wavering. He looks on, confused and hesitant. The red-haired man's eyes glow with a sinister, predatory light. The green-haired fighter's eyes widen in alarm. The crowd surges forward, eager for a fight. The red-haired man lunges at the green-haired fighter with a wild grin. He lands a powerful punch, sending his opponent reeling. The crowd roars as the brutal brawl unfolds. A close-up shows the devastating impact of the blow. The companion yells at him to stop, his face filled with rage. The blonde man calmly tells his companion not to do anything stupid. He warns that if he stops the fight, the bloodthirsty crowd will turn on him. The red-haired man grabs his dazed opponent. He effortlessly throws him to the ground. He raises his arms in triumph, basking in his victory. The door opens, and Ian steps into the light, his face shadowed. The red-haired man turns, his celebration cut short by the newcomer's arrival. Ian states coldly that he has come to join. Two spectators recognize him as the fighter from the outdoor match. The blonde man's face lights up with excitement as he greets Ian. Other fighters look on, wondering who this new person is. The blonde man proudly puts his arm around Ian, introducing him as the impressive new player he discovered. The companion watches from the side, a look of deep concern on his face. The red-haired man sizes up Ian, a predatory glint in his eyes. He casually tosses his previous opponent aside. The green-haired fighter lands in a heap on the floor. Ian's eyes narrow as he watches the display of cruelty. He looks up, his gaze meeting the red-haired man's. The red-haired man declares that the second round starts now. The crowd erupts, their cheers echoing through the warehouse. A close-up on the red-haired man's eye shows his intense excitement. He revels in the feeling, the adrenaline of the fight. He recalls the unique pleasure he feels when beating people up. He describes it as a thrill he can only find in these moments. He crouches, hungry for more of that feeling. He stomps the ground, sending a shockwave through the scattered money. He lunges at Ian, his fist flying forward. Ian clenches his own fist, ready to meet the attack. The red-haired man grins, anticipating the pain he's about to inflict. His fist connects solidly with Ian's face. An X-ray view shows the brutal impact on Ian's jaw. The red-haired man's smile wavers, surprised by the lack of reaction. His eye widens, waiting for the pained response that never comes. He screams, demanding to see Ian's expression of pain. Ian stands perfectly still, his face a blank, emotionless canvas. The red-haired man is bewildered, questioning why his opponent isn't reacting at all. Ian counters with a swift, powerful blow to the face. The red-haired man stumbles back as the crowd roars in surprise. A single drop of blood falls to the floor. The red-haired man touches his lip, a look of disbelief on his face. He breaks into a wild, manic laugh. He charges forward again, his excitement renewed. He grins, eager for another exchange. Ian lands a solid punch to his opponent's gut. The red-haired man's grin only widens as if he enjoys the pain. Ian remains calm, his expression unchanged. The red-haired man wonders if Ian is suppressing the pain, but knows it's impossible. Ian lands another hard punch to the face. The force of the blow sends his opponent stumbling backward. The companion watches, stunned that Ian seems to have taken no damage. The red-haired man coughs, spitting blood onto the floor. He screams in frustration, demanding to know what Ian is and why he feels no pain. Ian stands silently in the center of the ring, an immovable object. He feels something is different about himself this time. He recalls that while his sense of pain was often weak, it was never gone. But now his senses have completely disappeared, and he doesn't know why. The red-haired man throws another punch, which Ian easily blocks. He taunts Ian, saying his endurance only makes him more curious to see how much he can take. They engage in a furious exchange of blows. Ian's eyes are sharp and focused, tracking every move. He ducks under a wild swing. The red-haired man is shocked, realizing Ian has learned his pattern. He lands a surprise uppercut, catching Ian off guard. The blow snaps Ian's head back. The two fighters trade powerful blows back and forth. They are locked in a relentless, brutal exchange. A montage shows the flurry of attacks from both sides. Ian continues to block and absorb the punishment. The red-haired man's face blurs with rage as he attacks. Ian lands a powerful elbow strike, breaking the rhythm. His eyes turn completely white, a sign of his intense focus. He shakes his hands, steam rising from his body. He opens his hand, revealing it is completely unharmed. The red-haired man suddenly grabs Ian by the throat. He sneers, thinking Ian is much weaker than he expected. Ian looks down, his eyes still empty despite the chokehold. The blonde man watches from the crowd, thinking the rumors about Ian were just lies. The red-haired man looks disappointed, finding the fight suddenly boring. He shoves Ian away with a dismissive push. Ian digs his heel into the ground, stopping his momentum instantly. He looks up, his face bruised and bleeding, but his eyes are cold and steady. The red-haired man is stunned by his opponent's resilience. Ian dodges a follow-up attack and moves in close. The red-haired man realizes with a jolt that Ian wasn't finished. Ian lands a solid punch to his opponent's already bruised face. He follows up with another devastating blow. He continues his relentless assault, driving the man back. The red-haired man staggers, overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught. He falls to his knees, groaning in pain. He thinks he's going insane and can no longer hold back his true nature. Ian thinks the same thing, realizing he can't hold back either. The red-haired man lunges from behind, wrapping his arms around Ian's neck. He locks Ian in a desperate, powerful chokehold. He snarls that Ian won't be able to faint this time. He squeezes with all his might, his muscles bulging with effort. He whispers with murderous intent that he's going to kill him. He screams, demanding to know what Ian will do now. His eyes bulge as he screams for Ian to just die. Ian's body suddenly goes limp in his arms. The red-haired man laughs triumphantly, but his joy is short-lived. The companion rushes in, delivering a powerful kick to his side. The red-haired man is sent flying across the room. The companion furiously asks if he was trying to kill someone again. The man sits on the floor, laughing that he would have really killed him if he hadn't been stopped. Ian stands up, his face battered but his posture steady. The red-haired man stares in disbelief, wondering how he is still standing. The companion grabs Ian, telling him the match is over and to get out. Two spectators watch them leave, questioning the companion's authority. The red-haired man remains on the floor, seething with a strange mix of anger and excitement. He watches Ian's retreating back, a strange look in his eyes. His heart begins to pound in his chest. The image of Ian's blank, unconscious face flashes in his mind. His heart thumps erratically, a feeling of obsession taking root. In a quiet hallway, the companion confronts Ian. He asks why Ian came back when he was explicitly warned not to. Ian, bruised and exhausted, quietly replies that he needed the money. The companion lets out a heavy, frustrated sigh. He shoves a wad of cash into Ian's hand, telling him to take it and never return. Ian refuses the money, instead asking for the next match location and holding out the phone. The companion's face twists in anger. He punches Ian hard in the stomach. He grabs Ian's shirt, asking if he's lost his mind and if he realizes he almost died. Ian looks away, saying it doesn't matter. He states that he's never felt alive in the first place. The companion stares at him, completely stunned into silence. The blonde man appears, waving cheerfully as if nothing happened. He hands Ian a new phone and his winnings, inviting him to the next match. Ian looks at him with empty eyes and agrees to come. The companion slams his fist against the wall in frustration. He calls Ian a dim-witted punk, warning that dozens like him end up with ruined bodies. He walks away, telling Ian not to regret his decision later. The blonde man tells Ian to ignore his nosy friend. He adds with a smirk that the companion has no right to talk, having been there the longest. Ian asks the blonde man how much money the companion has made from fighting. The blonde man looks back, surprised by the unexpected question. Ian asks how much money he can truly make if he commits to this path. The man explains that with more wins, Ian's reputation will grow. He assures him that once he dominates the scene, money will no longer be a concern. Ian presses further, wanting to know when he can join a bigger match. The blonde man pauses for a moment, considering Ian's ambition. He places a hand on Ian's shoulder, promising to assess his skills for bigger opportunities. With a wave, the blonde man walks away, leaving Ian to contemplate his future. Ian stands alone in the hallway, his face bruised but his eyes filled with resolve. He looks down at the wad of cash, the tangible proof of his brutal victory. Later, he rides in a truck with his construction site boss. The boss asks Ian why he pushes himself to such extremes. He mentions hearing about Ian's all-night shifts at the parcel service. The boss acknowledges that everyone has their own difficult circumstances. He was just curious about the reason for Ian's relentless overexertion. Ian remains silent, staring out the window at the passing city. He clutches the fight money in his pocket, a secret source of hope and pain. He walks home alone through the dark, empty streets. He hangs his head, the physical and emotional toll of his life weighing him down. A sudden, racking cough seizes him and he clutches his chest. He stares in shock at his hand, now covered in blood. He touches his bleeding mouth, the internal damage from the fight finally surfacing. In a flashback, the boss continues his well-meaning advice. He warns Ian that if he keeps bottling everything up, he's bound to break someday. Ian sits quietly, the boss's words echoing in his mind. The boss explains that even if he ignores it, all the damage will accumulate. Ian stumbles into his dark apartment, the prophecy coming true. He's pale and weak, blood dripping from his nose and mouth. The blood pools on the floor at his feet. He thinks about his next shift, wondering why his body is failing him now. The room spins violently as he loses consciousness. The wad of cash slips from his grasp, scattering through the air. He collapses onto the floor, surrounded by the money he fought so hard for. At the parcel service, a supervisor yells about an empty station on the line. A coworker informs him that the worker, Ian, didn't show up. The supervisor angrily orders him to call Ian and threaten to withhold his pay. The co-worker protests, saying he can't possibly cover the extra workload. He explains that Ian consistently did the work of more than one person. He admits it's bizarre how Ian never got sick, working like a tireless machine. He asks the supervisor to go easy on Ian, reminding him that he's just a kid. The scene shifts to a quiet university classroom after hours. Hana waits anxiously, wondering why Ian ditched their lunch plans. She worries that he might have gotten hurt at one of his many jobs. She frets, realizing with frustration that she doesn't even have his number. Seun listens from the side, her own quiet concern growing. As the sun sets, Seun walks home alone. She can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, as Ian missed all his classes. She approaches the familiar apartment building where they both live. Hana's worried voice echoes in her thoughts. Knowing he lives in the semi-basement, she decides to check on him. She hesitates at the top of the stairs, feeling like she's intruding. Her eyes catch something strange down the stairwell. She sees the door to Ian's apartment is slightly ajar. Dark, ominous stains are splattered on the floor. She stares, a cold sense of dread creeping over her. Her mind races as she realizes the stains look like blood. After a moment of shocked stillness, her concern takes over. She dashes down the stairs toward the open door. She pushes the door open, her heart pounding with fear. Her eyes widen in horror at the scene inside. She rushes to his side, desperately asking if he's okay. She finds him lying motionless on the floor, his face pale. Paramedics rush into the apartment, the flashing lights filling the room. In the hospital, Ian lies unconscious, an oxygen mask covering his face. The doctors are baffled, wondering how he survived in such a critical state. His heart monitor suddenly flatlines, signaling a crisis. Seun keeps a lonely vigil by his bedside through the night. Outside the window, a new day dawns as a bird feeds its young. In the bright morning light, Ian lies peacefully in his hospital bed. He slowly begins to stir, his eyes fluttering open. He sits up, disoriented by his surroundings. He throws off the covers, a sudden noise breaking the silence. His eyes slowly focus as he takes in the unfamiliar room. He turns and sees Seun asleep on a cot beside him. Startled awake, Seun asks him what on earth he is and if he's okay. They stare at each other for a long, silent moment. Ian looks at her blankly and asks who she is. The silence stretches on, thick with confusion. Seun's shock turns to frustration as she reminds him they just had lunch together. The memory clicks and he finally says her name, Seun Lim. She expresses her immense relief, telling him the doctor called his survival a miracle. Overwhelmed, she asks him what could have possibly happened. Ian calmly replies that it seems he just fainted. Seun presses him, asking why he was in that state and if someone had attacked him. She looks at him with deep, unanswered concern. She asks why no one else was home and where his family is. Ian quietly explains that his father doesn't come home often. He quickly changes the subject, asking for the time so he can go to school. Seun scolds him, telling him he's hospitalized and has been excused from class. He insists that he can't miss work either. He tries to get out of bed, a frantic look on his face. Seun tells him to rest and says she'll bring their friends to visit later. Ian quickly grabs his phone, telling her not to tell anyone. He insists that he only wants her to know he's in the hospital. Surprised by his request, Seun reluctantly agrees. She tells him she's leaving, but will keep him updated on schoolwork. She's taken aback when he offers a quiet thanks. He notes that she must have stayed by his side the entire time. Seun smiles, teasing that he's better at expressing himself than he lets on. With a final wave, she leaves him to rest. Ian sits alone, clutching his IV stand, lost in thought. The scene shifts to the parcel service, where work continues without him. The supervisor asks a worker if he's managed to contact Ian. The worker says he hasn't, but the supervisor tells him to look after the kid when he returns. At a different work site, Ian's father's phone rings. He answers, a warm smile on his face as he hears Ian's voice. From his hospital bed, Ian apologizes for being unable to work. His father reassures him and asks if he'll be able to come back soon. Ian explains that his situation will prevent him from returning for a while. His father tells him not to worry about work and to focus on himself. He ends the call by telling Ian to stay healthy and not get hurt. Ian hangs up, moved by his father's rare moment of concern. He lowers the phone, his expression hardening once more. He sits in the darkness of his room, the red burner phone glowing ominously. A notification appears on the screen, the location for the next fight club. Ian's eyes reflect the phone's red light, a decision forming. The hospital bed is now empty, the sheets in disarray. Seun returns to the room, a confused look on her face. She asks a passing nurse where the patient in this room went. The nurse informs her that he was discharged some time ago. Seun stands alone in the empty room, realizing Ian has disappeared again. At a bustling new fight location, a crowd gathers with anticipation. The blonde man welcomes Ian, telling him this will be his first official match. He reassures Ian that the dangerous red-haired fighter has been banned. Ian quietly agrees to become a regular participant. Inside, a brutal fight is already underway as the crowd roars. In a different world, Ian's friends enjoy a picnic on the university lawn. Hana is in tears, wondering what happened to Ian and admitting she misses him. The group tries to cheer her up and enjoy their meal. The scene flashes to Ian, bloodied and grim, trading blows in the ring. It cuts back to his friends playing a carefree game during a school trip. Ian stands victorious over another opponent. The crowd's cheers a distant noise. His friends laugh together at a restaurant, collecting money for another round of drinks. The Fight Club spectators chant Ian's name, waving cash in the air. Ian kneels on the ground, his body battered, collecting his winnings. A close-up shows his bloodied eye, cold and empty. The reflection in his pupil is filled with images of falling money. An abyss of cash and burner phones represents his new, endless reality. After another fight, Ian tends to his wounds in a grimy bathroom. The blonde man and his companion appear in the mirror behind him. The blonde man reminds Ian of his desire to join a bigger match. He tells Ian his skills are wasted in this minor league. He gestures to his companion, explaining that he also has no real opponents here. He formally invites Ian to join them in the major leagues. Ian, his face covered in bandages, remains silent. He walks past them, heading for the exit. The two men watch as he leaves without a word. The companion crosses his arms, his expression unreadable. The bathroom is left empty, the air heavy with unspoken words. The scene shifts to a large, professional-looking arena with a caged ring. Staff members clean the ring after a brutal match. A defeated fighter is carried out on a stretcher. The blonde man notes how different and more organized this venue is. He tells his companion, Wanchul, to go participate while he and Ian watch. Wanchul walks towards the ring, his expression grim. The three of them sit quietly in the back of the audience. Ian sits beside a man with silver hair observing the scene. A large, boisterous fighter in the ring calls out to Wanchul Park. He mockingly asks if Wanchul has prepared for their match. He taunts him, eager to get his hands on him in the ring. Wanchul ignores the jeers and continues walking. A faint, almost imperceptible smile plays on his lips. The fighter continues his taunts, mocking Wanchul's debt to a sly fox. He cruelly asks why Wanchul borrowed money to save a friend who was doomed anyway. Wanchul's stoic expression doesn't change. The fighter reveals to the crowd that Wanchul's friend ended his own life. He calls Wanchul a stupid bastard for his efforts. He laughs maniacally, telling Wanchul he should just die too. Wanchul finally stops, his face cast in a dark shadow. The fighter spits on the ground, annoyed by the delay. Ian asks the blonde man why Wanchul endures this. The blonde man explains that no one here enjoys fighting. It's all for the money. He begins to tell the tragic story of Wanchul's best friend of 30 years. The friend, also a fighter, suffered a heart attack from drug use. He was rushed to the emergency room, his life hanging by a thread. That was when the blonde man first met a desperate Wanchul. Wanchul had come to him with his friend's Fight Club phone. He begged for a loan to cover the hospital bills, promising to pay it back by fighting. But his friend's condition worsened, leaving him on life support. The medical debt grew into an insurmountable sum. Wanchul sat by his friend's bedside, helpless. Knowing the burden he'd become, his friend took his own life in the hospital bed. The blonde man admits he expected Wanchul to run away from the debt. Instead, Wanchul promised to repay every penny, thanking the man for letting him see his friend. The blonde man concludes that Wanchul is too kind and foolish for this world. Ian remembers Wanchul's warning to stay away if he wanted to live. He recalls Wanchul grabbing him, trying to force him to leave. He remembers the money Wanchul tried to give him, a desperate attempt to save him. Ian finally understands the depth of Wanchul's actions. In the ring, the fighter continues to mock Wanchul over his dead friend. He asks what his friend would think, seeing him like this now. Wanchul closes his eyes, shutting out the noise. He silently apologizes to his friend, asking for forgiveness. He remembers his friend's last words, a desperate plea for him to win no matter what. The bell rings and the match begins. The fighter charges forward, his face a mask of aggression. He throws a wild punch, aiming to end it quickly. Wanchul blocks the attack with incredible force. He counters with a powerful kick that sends his opponent flying. The fighter stumbles to his knees, clutching his side in agony. Wanchul looms over his opponent, who cowers on the ground. The dazed fighter looks up, shocked by the sheer force of the blows. Wanchul unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes, each one landing with devastating power. Overwhelmed by the assault, the fighter desperately yells that he gives up. The blonde man explains to a concerned Ian that surrender is not an option here. Ian questions the extreme risk involved in such a rule. The blonde man clarifies that the high stakes are intentional, designed to increase the excitement and the prize money. Back in the ring, Wanchul prepares to deliver another powerful blow. The crowd watches intently as Wanchul completely dominates his opponent in the center of the cage. The blonde man looks on, remarking that Wanchul is a fool. The beaten fighter looks up, confused by Wanchul's sudden pause. Wanchul stands over his opponent, who questions why he's hesitating to end the fight. The fighter, thinking he's being shown mercy, grabs Wanchul's leg and thanks him. Wanchul's expression hardens as he grabs the fighter, his brief moment of pity gone. He slams his opponent back down with incredible force. The tables turn as the fighter gains the upper hand, delivering a series of strikes. The fighter laughs manically, mocking Wanchul's perceived naivety. Wanchul expertly deflects an incoming punch. The blonde man notes that while Wanchul may be naive, he is far from weak. Wanchul lands a devastating counterattack that connects squarely with his opponent's face. The fighter's body goes limp as he collapses to the mat. The crowd erupts in cheers as Wanchul stands victorious over his fallen opponent. Ian watches in awe, wondering how Wanchul could possess such strength. A staff member delivers a box overflowing with cash to the blonde man. Ian's gaze is fixed on the massive prize money. The box is filled with neat stacks of bills. Ian stares at the wad of cash in his hand, realizing the immense potential for earnings. A look of determination crosses Ian's face as he considers his own chances of winning. The blonde man observes Ian's reaction with a sly smile. Later, Ian sits alone, gathering the large sums of money he's earned from fighting. The loan shark praises Ian for his consistent payments, suggesting he'll clear the debt soon. He questions the source of Ian's income, recalling how his father gambled away a large sum. Ian gives a vague answer, claiming he's just working. The loan shark looks at him with suspicion, not believing his simple explanation. His eyes narrow as he scrutinizes Ian. He notices the fresh bruises and cuts on Ian's face. The signs of recent fights are clearly visible. The evidence of violence is undeniable. Ian stands to leave, promising to pay off the entire debt soon. The loan shark seems doubtful, reminding Ian of the huge amount still owed. Ian reaffirms his promise and firmly requests that they stay away from his home. He turns and walks out the door, his business concluded. The door closes, leaving the loan sharks to their thoughts. The loan shark watches the door with a thoughtful expression. He orders his subordinate to look into Ian's activities. He examines the cash, certain that it wasn't earned through legitimate means. A greedy thought crosses his mind. If the money is illicit, it's theirs for the taking. Ian walks alone, the weight of his choices on his shoulders. His face is grim, showing the toll his double life is taking. The blonde man approaches Ian, asking if he remembers Wanchul's last opponent. A flashback of the brutal fight flashes through Ian's mind. The blonde man reveals that this same fighter will be Ian's first official opponent in the Major League. He explains that the fighter likely chose Ian, a newcomer, for an easy victory. He admits it's a tough matchup, but offers to make it happen. The potential winnings are massive, adding to the temptation. He formally offers Ian the high-stakes fight. Without hesitation, Ian accepts the challenge. The blonde man warns that his opponent is a professional and far more skilled than anyone Ian has fought. He clarifies that despite his attitude, the man is a formidable professional athlete. He suggests Ian seek advice from Wanchul, who has extensive experience in the ring. Ian remembers Wanchul's harsh words warning him away from this life. Ian walks alone, contemplating the upcoming fight. His steps are heavy as he makes his way through the desolate landscape. He continues his slow, determined walk. He finds Wanchul sitting alone on a bench. He stands before the veteran fighter, ready to speak. Ian humbly asks for his advice on the upcoming match. Wanchul looks at him, annoyed by the sudden request. Ian directly asks for a strategy to defeat his opponent. Wanchul dismisses his question, stating that a novice can't beat a lifelong fighter. He gets in Ian's face, angrily refusing to help someone who ignored his warnings. He brushes past Ian, leaving him behind. Ian watches his retreating back, his hope for guidance gone. The scene shifts to a modern city complex on the day of the fight. Elsewhere, the red-haired fighter complains that he can't find Ian. He tosses a burner phone in frustration, having been tricked. He realizes the blonde man who gave him the phone was the same one from the fight club. In a flashback, the blonde man gives him a new phone, promising he'll find Ian at the next match. The red-haired man arrives at the designated spot, only to find it deserted. He looks around, confused and angry that he's been stood up. He realizes he's been played once again. He furiously smashes the burner phone on the ground. His rage boils over as he repeatedly punches a wall. He grits his teeth, vowing to find Ian and end things. His eyes burn with obsession as he thinks about what he'll do to Ian. A well-dressed, silver-haired man calmly tells him not to make a mess. The man adjusts his tie, looking cool and composed. The silver-haired man says he's leaving for the office, ignoring the red-haired man's confusion. The red-haired man begs to come along, desperate to see the fight. The silver-haired man coolly reminds him that he's banned from the matches. The red-haired man questions why he's still attending the child's play matches. The silver-haired man admits his interest was piqued by a particular newcomer. The red-haired man's eyes widen in surprise, realizing they share the same target of interest. He confirms his interest, recalling how he observed Ian during the last match. The scene shows Ian sitting stoically next to the observant man. He explains that most spectators react physically or emotionally to the violence. They empathize with the fighters, feeling their pain and struggle. He notes that Ian, however, showed absolutely no reaction. He describes Ian as being like an unfeeling machine, completely detached from the brutal scene. He found it amusing that the only thing that seemed to affect Ian was the mention of money. He smiles, finding Ian's unique nature intriguing. His curiosity about the strange young man has grown. He suspects that Ian is already being controlled or sponsored by someone else. He opens a drawer filled with keys to various high-end sports cars. He selects a specific key from the collection. He declares his intention to take Ian for himself if he proves interesting enough. The red-haired man dismisses it, claiming the fighter he found is far more compelling. The silver-haired man wishes him well and departs. He speeds off into the night in a flashy red car. He drives, anticipating what kind of fighter Ian will turn out to be. Meanwhile, two thugs on motorcycles watch the building, planning to ambush Ian when he leaves with his winnings. Back at the arena, Ian stands ready, facing the blonde man and Wanchel before his big match.